The moment the bank manager's voice cracked on the phone and said, "Ma'am, are you sitting down?" I knew my life had just split in two. I was standing in the doorway of a cheap motel off the highway, clutching a plastic keycard in one hand and my old purse in the other. Rain was dripping from the eaves onto my head, but I barely felt it. My husband of 23 years had put me out the night before with nothing but 2 suitcases and the clothes on my back. And now this stranger on the phone was telling me something about my father's old account that made his words tremble. But let me take you back, darling, because none of this makes sense unless you know how quietly a marriage can rot from the inside. My name is Del, but everybody who loves me calls me Dee. For as long as I can remember, I woke up to the smell of coffee brewing and the low hum of Mark's electric shaver in the bathroom. That little sound used to comfort me more than any love song. Our house on Maple Crest was small, but it was ours, painted butter yellow with the porch swing that creaked when the wind came off the lake. 23 years of mornings, of him kissing the back of my neck while I flipped pancakes, of me ironing his shirts while he read the sports page out loud in that silly announcer voice just to make me laugh. We never had much, but we had enough. I worked part-time at the library, shelving books and helping little ones find the picture book section. Marky Mark was a mechanic at the Ford dealership. Honest work. Greasy nails, the faint smell of motor oil that never quite left his skin no matter how hard he scrubbed. We raised 2 children in that house. Our daughter Camille, who's a nurse now in Charlotte, and our boy Devin, who followed his daddy into the garage and still calls me every Sunday without fail. People said we were a steady couple, the ones who still held hands at the church picnic, the ones who slow danced in the kitchen when an old song came on the radio. I believed it too. Looking back, I can't tell you the exact day the warmth started leaking out of us. Maybe it was when the plant cut his overtime. Maybe it was when my arthritis began acting up and I had to quit the library. Maybe it was the way he stopped kissing the back of my neck and started staring at his phone like it held the answer to prayers. He never said out loud, but life kept moving. Dinners kept getting cooked. The laundry kept spinning. I told myself small silences were normal after 2 decades. I told myself the way he flinched when I touched his arm was just tiredness. I told myself a lot of things. The first real crack came on a Tuesday. That smelled like rain coming. I'd gone to the grocery store for milk and bread. When I came home, Mark was in the garage with the door half down, talking low and fast into his phone. I heard my name, Dee doesn't need to know yet, and my heart made this funny stutter, like a record skipping. I stood there with the plastic bags cutting into my fingers until he saw me. His face went blank, then arranged itself into the smile he used for customers. "Who was that, honey?" I asked, trying to sound light. "Just parts supplier," he said, too quickly. "Running late on a transmission." I nodded and went inside and put the milk away, and told myself I was being foolish. Marriages have little secrets. That's all. But the secrets started piling up like unread mail. He changed the passcode on his phone. He started showering the minute he walked in the door, like he was washing something off that wasn't just grease. Some nights he said he had to stay late for inventory, but when I drove by the dealership at 9 o'clock, the lot was dark and his truck wasn't there. I'd lie awake listening to the clock tick in the hallway, and feel the bed grow colder on his side long before he slipped in. I'd pretend to be asleep so I wouldn't have to ask where he'd been. Pride is a terrible heavy blanket, baby. It keeps you warm and suffocates you at the same time. Then came the credit card statements I wasn't supposed to see, hotel charges in the next county, a jewelry store I'd never stepped foot in, a cash advance for $3,000. When I asked .com as I could, he said the card was for business, emergencies only, and I was making something out of nothing. I wanted so badly to believe him that I almost convinced myself the lipstick on his collar was grease from a rag. Almost at the night he put me out. It was raining the way it does in Georgia in spring, sudden and hard, like the sky is crying for somebody else's sins. I'd found a text on his phone when he left it charging on the counter. Just a heart emoji from a number saved as M. That was all it took. 23 years, and one little red heart broke me wide open. I waited up until 2 in the morning. He walked in smelling like someone else's perfume, something young and expensive. "Who is she, Mark?" He didn't even try to lie well. Said her name was Tiffany. Said she was said I'd let myself go and he was tired of pretending. I laughed. I don't know why. Maybe because crying would have killed me right there on the kitchen tile. He told me to pack a bag and leave before morning. Said the house was in his name, a lie I'd discover later. Said he'd have the locks changed. Said he was done carrying me. I stood there in my old housecoat, the one with the little faded roses. and watched the man I'd loved since I was 19 tell me I was disposable. So I packed, not much. My mother's Bible, a picture of the kids when they still had gap-toothed smiles, some clothes, and, almost as an afterthought, the old checkbook my daddy left me when he passed 15 years ago. Daddy had been a careful man. He'd put a little away every month into an account he never touched. Told me once, "Debug, this is for when life tries to knock you flat. Promise me you'll only use it if you have no other choice." I'd forgotten it existed. Mark handled all the bills. But that night, shaking in that motel parking lot, I dug the checkbook out of the bottom of my purse like it was a life raft. The balance slip tucked inside was yellowed and soft. The last number written there, in Daddy's neat banker's hand, took my breath away. $487,312 and some cents. I sit down on the curb, in the rain, and cried for the first time since Mark closed the door in my face, because my daddy, church deacon, never missed a day of work. Daddy had left me almost $500,000, and I'd never even known, and tomorrow morning, I was going to walk into that bank and find out why. The next morning I put on the only decent thing I'd packed, my navy Sunday suit with the little pearl buttons, the one I wore to Camille's nursing graduation. I hadn't slept. My eyes were puffy, and my hands shook while I tried to put on lipstick in the motel mirror, but I did it anyway. A woman has to armor herself however she can. The bank opened at 9. I was there at 8:35, sitting in my old Buick with the engine running so the heat would keep my knees from locking up. When the doors finally unlocked, I walked in like I still belonged somewhere. Mr. Hargrove, the branch manager, knew me from years of cashing Mark's paychecks. He took one look at my face and came out from behind the glass himself. Honey, what's wrong?" I slid Daddy's checkbook across the counter. "I need to know about this account." He opened it, glanced at the ancient balance slip, then at me. His face went the color of weak tea. "Give me 2 minutes," he whispered, and disappeared into the back. 2 minutes turned into 20. I stood there listening to the clock above the teller's click like a nervous heartbeat. People came and went. A baby fussed. Somebody's pen scratched across a deposit slip. Everything felt far away, like I was underwater. Mr. Hargrove came back with the regional manager, Ms. Patel, trailing behind him. She was young, sharp-suited, eyes kind, but serious. "Mrs. Jackson," she said quietly, "could we speak in my office?" I followed them down the little hallway that smelled like burnt coffee and lemon polish. When the door closed, Ms. Patel didn't sit behind the desk. She pulled a chair around so we were knee-to-knee, like we were girlfriends about to share bad news. "Your father opened this account in 1987, she began. "It was a high-yield money market, very private. He added you as sole beneficiary in 2005, the year before he passed." I nodded. "I knew that part. What you may not know," she said, turning her computer screen so I could see, "is that the account has been dormant for 15 years. No withdrawals, no deposits, just compounding interest. The current balance is $487,312.42. The number looked fake, like something from a game show. "There's something else," Mr. Hargrove added, voice barely above a whisper. 6 weeks ago, someone came in with paperwork attempting to move the funds. They had a death certificate for you. The Lourdes Marie Exon dated last month. Said you'd died of heart failure in Tennessee, and that your husband, Mark Anthony Jackson, was executing your estate." My mouth went dry. "I'm sitting right here." "We know that now," Ms. Patel said gently. "But at the time, the signature card they presented looked legitimate. Your signature, perfect match. They even had a notarized affidavit." I felt the room tilt. "We stalled," Mr. Hargrove said. "Something felt wrong. The notary was from out of county, and the death certificate number didn't check out when we called Vital Records. We told them we needed 45 days for probate verification. That bought us time." Ms. Patel reached across and took my cold hand. "Mrs. Jackson, whoever did this committed felony fraud. We've already contacted the sheriff's office and frozen every attempt. The money is safe. And it's all yours, the minute you sign the new signature card." I started shaking then, not from fear, but from something bigger like a dam breaking inside. My chest. Mark had tried to kill me on paper. He'd planned to bury me while I was still breathing, take Daddy's money, and start his new life with that child he'd been sneaking around with. I signed the new card with a hand that wouldn't stay steady. Ms. Patel printed me a fresh debit card on the spot, black, heavy, with my name in raised letters. When she handed it over, I felt the weight of it like it was made of gold instead of plastic. I walked out of that bank, into bright sunshine that felt too cheerful for the storm still raging inside me. My phone buzzed Camille, asking if I was okay, if I needed her to drive down from Charlotte. I couldn't answer yet. I just sat in the Buick and stared at the new card until the letters blurred. Then I did something I hadn't done since. I was a girl hiding from Mama's hairbrush. I drove to the cemetery where Daddy was buried. The grass was soft from last night's rain. I knelt by his headstone, simple granite. Just his name and the years, and I talked out loud like he was sitting right there in his overalls. Listening. Daddy, he tried to erase me. He told the world I was dead so he could take what you saved for me. The wind moved through the cedars and it felt like him smoothing my hair the way he used to. When nightmares woke me. I'm not dead, Daddy, I whispered. And I'm not letting him win. I stayed until the shadows got long. Then I drove to the Walmart, bought a prepaid phone, and started making calls I never thought I'd have to make. First, to my cousin Regina, who's a paralegal in Atlanta. Then, to Miss Lorraine at church, whose nephew is a deputy. Then to my baby brother Raymond in Memphis. He answered on the first ring and didn't say a word when I told him. Just said, I'm on my way. By nightfall, I had a plan. Not loud, not ugly, just quiet and certain. The way Daddy taught me to pull weeds, get the root, or it grows right back. Mark thought he'd thrown me away with nothing. He didn't know. I was coming back with everything. I didn't go back to the motel that night. Raymond drove in from Memphis at 3 in the morning, still wearing his truck driver clothes and smelling like diesel and coffee. He took one look at me sitting on the curb with my 2 suitcases and pulled me into his arms like I was 10 years old again. "Debug," he said, into my hair, using Daddy's old name for me. "You don't ever have to sleep in a motel again. Come on home with me till we get this straightened out." But I shook my head. "I'm not running, Ray. I just need a quiet place to think." He understood. He always did. So he got us a little Airbnb on the edge of town, 2 bedrooms, clean sheets, a porch that faced the woods. I paid with the new black card and didn't flinch when the total flashed on the screen. That felt like the first small victory. The next morning, I sat at the kitchen table with a legal pad and wrote down everything I knew, everything I suspected, and everything I needed to prove. Mark had forged my death certificate, forged my signature to access Daddy's account, taken cash advances on cards I didn't know existed, put the house in his name only. I needed to see when and how moved his girlfriend into our bed the very night he put me out. Miss Lorraine's niece had already seen her car in the driveway. I stared at that list until the words stopped swimming. Then I called the one person who still had a key to the house and owed me more favors than she could ever repay. Tasha is Mark's baby sister. She's 35 going on 19, loud and loyal and scared of her own shadow sometimes. When Mark and I got married, she was 12 and followed me around like a puppy. I taught her how to put on makeup, how to iron a blouse, how to stand up straight when boys tried to make her feel small. She never forgot it. I met her at the Waffle House at noon. She slid into the booth looking like she hadn't slept, either hair in a messy bun, eyes red. I swear I didn't know about the death certificate thing till yesterday, she blurted before I even said hello. "Mark told us you left him, said you cleaned out the accounts and ran off with some man from the library." Mama believed him. I wasn't sure. I reached across and covered her trembling hand with mine. "Tasha, baby, I need you to listen closely. Your brother tried to steal $500,000 that belonged to me by telling the bank I was dead. I need proof he's been moving money, and I need to get into that house to get my papers." She swallowed hard. "He changed the locks. I know, but you still have the garage code, don't you?" She nodded slowly. "Will you help me, sugar?" "Not for me, for what's right." Tasha has always been soft-hearted. 10 minutes later, she was crying into her hash browns and promising me anything I needed. That same afternoon, I did 2 more things. First, I went to the courthouse with Regina and filed an emergency spousal support motion. Because the house was bought during the marriage, no matter whose name was on the deed now, Georgia law said I still had rights. The clerk stamped it with a noise like a judge's gavel in my head. Second, I hired Mr. Clarence Moody, the best divorce attorney in 3 counties. He's 72, drinks coffee black enough to float a horseshoe, and still wears bow ties. When I slid the bank statement across his desk showing the attempted fraud, his eyebrows went up so high they nearly touched his hairline. "Well, Mrs. Jackson," he said, leaning back, "your husband just handed us the whole darn chessboard." 2 days later, on a Thursday morning that smelled like honeysuckle and coming rain, Tasha texted me, "He's at work, she's at the mall, the house is empty till 6. Raymond drove I sat in the passenger seat, clutching a canvas tote like it was a shield. We pulled into the driveway of the butter yellow house that used to be mine, and I felt my heart try to climb out of my throat. The porch swing was gone. In its place hung a cheap plastic chair from Walmart. There were pink flamingos stuck in the flower beds I used to tend every spring. Tasha met us at the garage door, eyes darting like a scared deer. The code still worked. The door rumbled up and the smell hit me, my lemon furniture polish mixed with some cloying vanilla plug-in that wasn't mine. Everything looked the same and completely foreign all at once. Her clothes are in my closet, her makeup on my vanity, a bottle of champagne chilling in my refrigerator with a sticky note that said "To New Beginnings, Tiff." I didn't cry. I was past crying. I moved like a woman in a dream, quiet and careful. I found what I needed in the safe. He thought I didn't know the combination too. The forged death certificate with my name, typed neat as you please. The fake will leaving everything to him. The paperwork trying to transfer daddy's account. I photographed every page with my new phone. Then I took my good dishes, my mama's silver, and every photograph of our children he hadn't already thrown away. When we walked out, I left the forgery packet on the kitchen counter with a single post-it note in my handwriting. I'm not dead. Mark. See you in court. Raymond closed the garage door behind us. The sound it made rolling down felt like the final curtain on the life I used to have. That night I sat on the Airbnb porch and watched fireflies blink in the dark. My phone kept buzzing, Mark, frantic, calling from numbers I didn't know. I let everyone go to voicemail. Mr. Moody had already filed a lis pendens on the house and a freeze on every account Mark could touch. The sheriff's deputy, Miss Lorraine's nephew, had picked up the forgery packet and opened a criminal investigation. Mark's world was about to shrink real small, real fast, and I hadn't even raised my voice once. Word travels faster than wildfire in a small town, especially when the sheriff is involved. By Sunday morning, half the congregation at Mount Zion Baptist knew something had gone terribly wrong at the Jackson house. People greeted me in the parking lot with soft hands on my arm and eyes full of questions they were too polite to ask. I just smiled the way Mama taught me, small, steady, letting them know I was still standing. Mark didn't come to church. Tiffany did. She walked in 20 minutes late wearing a tight red dress that belonged at a club. Not the third pew from the front. Heads turned so fast, I thought the choir director would lose her wig. Tiffany's face was puffy, mascara already smudged like she'd been crying in the car. She sat down right where I used to sit, my spot for 23 years, and stared straight ahead like nobody could see her. I felt every eye slide from her to me and back again. Sister Clara, who's 91 and deaf in one ear, leaned over with her butterscotch voice and said loud enough for 3 rows to hear, "That child got some nerve showing up here after what she did." I patted Sister Clara's knee and kept my eyes on Pastor Rollins. He preached that morning about David picking up 5 smooth stones to face a giant. I felt every word land on my skin like warm rain. After service, people formed a quiet line to hug me. Not one person hugged Tiffany. She stood by the door, twisting the strap of her purse until the plastic cut into her fingers. When I walked past her, she whispered my name. Dee. I stopped, looked her in the eye. She was younger than my own daughter, skin still glowing with that 27-year-old shine, but her eyes were old with panic. I didn't know about the death certificate. She rushed out. "He told me you left him. He said you took all the money and ran off to Florida." I swear I didn't know. I studied her for a long moment. The lobby smelled like fried chicken from the fellowship hall and the perfume she'd stolen from my dresser drawer. "Baby," I said softly enough that only she could hear, "you moved into my house the same night he put me out the door. You drank champagne in my kitchen while I slept in a motel. You don't get to play innocent now." Her mouth opened, closed, tears spilled. I walked away before she could answer. I didn't need to hear it. Monday morning the story broke wide open. The county paper ran it on the front page under the headline, "Local mechanic accused of forging wife's death certificate in $500,000 fraud scheme." Somebody at the bank had talked. Somebody at the sheriff's office had talked. By noon, it was on the Atlanta News. By evening, it was on Facebook, complete with Mark's old driver's license photo, looking greasy and mean. The dealership fired him before lunch. His boss, Mr. Carter, who'd been to our house for fish fries, called me personally to apologize for ever hiring him. Said Mark had 30 minutes to clean out his toolbox or they'd have him escorted off the property. Camille and Devon drove in that same day. My babies stood in the Airbnb kitchen, crying and cursing their daddy in the same breath. Devon, who looked so much like Mark it hurt sometimes, kept saying, Mama, I'm done with him, done. Camille just held me while I finally let the tears come. Tuesday, the sheriff arrested Mark at his mama's house. Miss Lorraine's nephew put the cuffs on him right there on the front porch while Miss Erline wailed and clutched her Bible. They found the notary hood, stamped the fake paper Stearns out. Mark paid him $2,000 cash and a set of new tires. By Friday, the church had taken an offering for me without even asking. Envelopes started showing up in the mail, $20 here, $50 there. One from Sister Clara with a butterscotch candy taped to it and the words, "For your sweet spirit," written in shaky cursive. I didn't want pity money. I gave every dime to the women's shelter downtown. I felt better that way. Mark made bond on Saturday. He showed up at the Airbnb that evening looking like a man who'd slept in his clothes for a week. His eyes were red, his hands shaking. He stood on the bottom step and called my name like a little boy locked out after dark. Please, let me explain. I opened the door but didn't invite him in. The porch light was harsh on his face, showing every new line, every lie. There's nothing you can say that fixes this. I told him calmly. I was scared, he said, voice cracking. The bills were piling up. Tiffany kept talking about wanting a bigger house, a ring, a baby, so you killed me on paper. I shook my head slowly. Mark Anthony, you didn't just steal money. You stole my name, my life, my peace. You don't get to cry to me now. He dropped to his knees right there on the welcome mat. I'll plead guilty. I'll pay it all back. Just don't take my kids from me. I looked down at the man I'd loved since we were teenagers, sneaking kisses behind the bleachers, and I felt nothing. Not hate, not even pity, just a big, clean, empty space where he used to live. Your children will decide what they want with you, I said. That's between y'all and God. But you don't get to come back to this house. You don't get to touch Daddy's money, and you sure don't get to call me D anymore. I closed the door softly, didn't slam it. I didn't need to. Through the window, I watched him sit on that step for a long time, head in his hands, while the cicadas screamed in the trees like they were mourning for him. I didn't mourn. I was too busy breathing for the first time in years. The divorce was final on a Tuesday in late September. The kind of day where the air smells like wood smoke and football games. Judge Hargrove, no relation to the bank manager, didn't waste words. He looked at Mark across the courtroom, shook his head once, and granted me everything I asked for, and a few things I hadn't even thought to ask for. The house on Maple Crest came back to me free and clear, along with half of Mark's $401k, permanent alimony until he's 70, and a personal judgment for the exact amount he tried to steal, $487,312.42. The judge called it punitive damages for emotional distress and attempted fraud. I just called it fair. Mark stood there in a cheap suit 2 sizes too big now, staring at the floor while the gavel fell. He never looked at me once. I think he couldn't. Tiffany didn't show up at all. Word was she'd moved back to her mama's trailer outside Savannah the day the news vans parked outside the dealership. Some stories said she was pregnant. Some said she wasn't. I never asked. That chapter was closed. After court, Camille and Devin walked me out into the sunshine. My daughter had her arm tight around my waist like she was afraid I'd float away. Devin carried my purse the way he used to carry my groceries when he was 10 and wanted to feel useful. Mama, what now? Camille asked. I looked up at the courthouse steps, felt the warm wind lift my hair, and smiled for real for the first time in months. Now I'm going home, I said. We drove to Maple Crest with the windows down. The pink flamingos were gone. Someone I suspect Tasha had already mowed the lawn and put the porch swing back up. A casserole sat on the doorstep with a note from Sister Clara. Welcome home, baby. Eat something. I stood in my own living room and smelled lemon polish and the faint ghost of motor oil that would probably never fully leave the walls. I walked from room to room touching things: my mama's china cabinet, the dent in the hallway where Devin crashed his big wheel when he was 4, the bedroom where I once thought I'd grow old beside a man who loved me. I left his clothes in black trash bags by the curb for the church rummage sale. Everything else stayed. This was still my house. I wasn't letting him take one more square inch of my life. The first night back, I slept in my own bed with the windows open and the ceiling fan turning lazy circles. I woke up at 3 in the morning to the sound of crying. For a second I thought it was me, but it wasn't. It was the house settling, breathing again now that the poison was gone. In the weeks that followed, I did small, deliberate things to make the space mine again. I painted the bedroom a soft sage green color called healing aloe. I planted mums along the walk the way I used to. I hung new curtains the color of butter Every change felt like stitching myself back together, one careful seam at a time. The money from Daddy sat quiet in the bank, earning interest the way he always meant it to. I didn't touch it except to pay Mr. Moody and to set up college funds for my future grandchildren whenever they come. The rest is there for the day my knees finally give out, or the roof caves in, or I decide to take the trip to Jerusalem I always talked about. People kept waiting for me to fall apart. They brought more casseroles, more prayer cloths, and more sympathetic looks. But every morning I got up, made coffee the way Mark never liked strong enough to stand a spoon in, and went to work at the library again. Mrs. Henderson had kept my job open without me even asking. I started a little tradition on Thursday evenings. After the library closed, I'd have women over, some from church, some from the shelter downtown, some just neighbors who needed a soft place to land. We'd sit on my porch with sweet tea and whatever pie was in season, and we'd talk about husbands who left, children who forgot to call, bills that never ended, dreams that got buried under laundry and worry. I'd listen more than I talked. Sometimes that's all a woman needs, someone to hear her without trying to fix it. One night a young thing named Latoya, 25, and already on husband number 2, asked me point blank, "Miss D, how do you not hate him?" I rocked the swing slowly and thought about it. "Hate is a heavy thing to carry," I said. "It sits on your chest while you sleep and steals your joy while you're awake." I decided Mark already took enough from me. I wasn't giving him my peace either. She nodded like she understood, but I could tell she didn't yet. "That's all right. Some lessons only come with miles." Mark tried to reach out a few times, sent letters through his lawyer, left voicemails asking if he could see the kids. Devin went once, came home quiet and sad. Camille hasn't spoken to him since the day he was arrested. I leave that between them and God. My job is to love them, not control them. Sometimes, on Sundays, I still sit in the third pew from the front. Tiffany's spot is empty now. Nobody has taken it. Some things leave a mark that doesn't fade quickly, and every evening when the sun starts to sink, I walk out to the porch swing, wrap myself in the Afghan mama crocheted, and watch the sky turn the color of peach preserves. I think about Daddy, about how proud he'd be that I kept my promise, only touched his money when life knocked me flat. I think about the girl I was at 19, barefoot in Mark's truck, believing love was simple. I was wrong about simple things, but I wasn't wrong about love. It just looks different when you're on the other side of breaking. I'm 61 now, and some mornings my knees creak louder than the porch swing, but my heart is quiet. My house is paid for. My children call me every day, and when I close my eyes at night, I don't hear Mark coming in late anymore. I hear Daddy's voice, soft as evening rain. "You did good, deep. You did good." So here I sit, on the same porch swing that's held me through babies, learning to walk, through arguments and making up, through storms and the kind of quiet nights where you can hear the stars. 61 years old, coffee gone cold in my hand, and I'm still breathing, still whole, still me. I won't lie and tell you it doesn't hurt sometimes. Some mornings I wake up and reach for a body that hasn't been beside me in years, and the empty side of the bed still feels like a bruise. But the hurt doesn't own me anymore. It just passes through, like a summer thunderstorm, loud for a minute, then gone, leaving the air washed clean. If you're watching this and you're in the middle of your own storm, if somebody you trusted has turned your world upside down, if you're standing in the rain with 2 suitcases wondering how you got here, listen close. Darling, you are not what they did to you. You are not the lies they told you, are not the space they left. Empty. You are the woman who gets up anyway, who plants flowers in the yard they said you'd never see again. Who makes coffee strong enough to wake the dead, and laughs with her babies on the phone at night. You are still here, and that, my love, is the sweetest revenge of all. Would you have walked back into that bank with your head high the way I did? Would you have left the door open for grace, even a crack? Tell me in the comments. Sugar, I read every single one. And if this old woman's story helped you even a little tonight, do me a favor, share it with somebody who needs to hear they're stronger than they know. Until next time, you take care of yourself. I'm Dee, and I'm still swinging.